The film commences with an American football match, led by a player named Joe, who holds the number one position within his team. This is due to his remarkable talent and consistent scoring of pivotal goals. Consistently, he proves to be the catalyst behind the team's triumph. After each match, he emerges victorious, orchestrating grand celebrations at his residence and extending invitations to all his companions. One day, as Joe enters his residence in Beaton, he encounters a gentle knock on the door. To his surprise, he beholds a young girl of tender age, bearing the name Beaton. She has held a fervent admiration for Joe, akin to one of his devoted child admirers. She seeks his autograph, similar to the other children who hold him in high esteem. She enters his abode without prior permission and engages in play with Joe's faithful canine companion, Spike. Upon Joe's return, he disapproves of Beaton for her unauthorized entry. Beaton, however, reveals her true identity to Joe, disclosing that she is the daughter of his past wife, Sarah, from a marriage that transpired years ago. This revelation leaves Joe astounded and bewildered by Beaton's words. Sarah, it transpires, is currently away on a business trip to Africa, aiding children in need. She is not expected to return for another month. Beaton hands Joe a missive from her mother, beseeching him to care for Beaton in her absence, a request aimed at fostering a connection between father and daughter during Sarah's time away. Despite this, Joe remains somewhat incredulous about Beaton's narrative. Beaton then presents her birth certificate, bearing her name, which deepens Joe's concern and prompts him to consult his business manager, Stella. He confides in her regarding his predicament, seeking her guidance and resolution. Stella, inquisitive about Joe's omission of his previous marriage, questions him further. Joe explains that his union with Sarah had lasted a mere year before their separation. Now estranged from Sarah, Joe and Stella converse with Beaton, raising probing questions to discern her authenticity. Following a series of interactions, Stella becomes assured of Beaton's relation to Joe. Nonetheless, Joe, grappling with disbelief, queries Beaton about her absence during her stay with her aunt, Karen. Beaton discloses the unfortunate demise of Karen in a car accident 6 months prior. Stella, recognizing the delicate nature of the situation, explains to Joe that Beaton's re-entry into his life could lead to public speculation and misconceptions, potentially tarnishing his image. Consequently, Stella advises Joe to accept this new aspect of his life, emphasizing that embracing it is his only viable course of action. Resigned to this realization, Joe acquiesces to Stella's counsel, thus commencing a new chapter in his life. He arrives at the sports club for training, accompanied by Beaton. During their journey, Beaton initiates a conversation with Joe, inquiring about his life to gain a deeper understanding. In a gracious gesture, she offers Joe a biscuit from her possession. However, Joe politely declines, revealing his cinnamon allergy. Beaton, apologetic for her oversight, reveals her nut allergy. As they arrive at the sports club, Joe's friends express astonishment at his unexpected companion, simultaneously displaying genuine pleasure in Beaton's presence. Playful banter ensues, further solidifying their camaraderie. Upon completing his training, Joe and Beaton return home. As night falls, Beaton requests that Joe share a bedtime story, a request that Joe struggles to fulfill. Unperturbed, Beaton narrates a tale to Joe, lulling him to sleep. Subsequently, Beaton retires to Joe's room to rest, while Joe settles on the couch, pondering the new dynamics that have unfolded in his life. On the following morn, Beaton awakens and dons her ballet attire, setting forth to awaken Joe. She entreats him to escort her to the nearest ballet school. However, Joe takes her along to the sports club, where they encounter Stella. She has arranged for an array of potential caretakers to oversee Beaton, permitting Joe to choose one who appeals to his judgment without prior knowledge. From among them, Joe selects a lady, her countenance fair, based solely upon her appearance. He informs her that her employment shall commence on the morrow. Come evening, Joe escorts Beaton to the grand opening of his new restaurant, an event teeming with esteemed guests, journalists, and dignitaries. Amidst the celebration, Joe becomes inadvertently preoccupied and departs from the restaurant, inadvertently leaving Beaton behind. However, on his way, he recollects his oversight and hastens back to retrieve her. The next day, the press casts aspersions upon Joe's paternal responsibility. Stella proposes a press conference to ameliorate his public image, an idea that Joe assents to. In the lead-up to the press conference, Stella embarks on a transformation of Joe's lifestyle, from that of a bachelor to a responsible father. She dismisses the notion of a caretaker entirely, replacing Joe's vehicle with a family car and fostering a sense of accountability within him. At the press conference, Joe admits his recent discovery of his daughter's existence, thus explaining his initial uncertainty. However, the journalists remain skeptical. Beaton steps forward and proclaims Joe as her source of happiness, asserting his excellence as a father. The heartfelt proclamation resonates with the press and audience alike, consequently mending Joe's reputation. In gratitude, Joe resolves to reward Beaton by enrolling her in ballet school. At the school, they meet Monica, the school's authority figure, who is intrigued by Beaton's evident talent and genuine passion for ballet. Monica decides to accept Beaton into the school, requesting Joe's presence at her practices to ensure her commitment. Yet, during one of the practice sessions, Joe arrives late, finding Beaton asleep on the staircase. Monica takes charge, conversing with Joe about his demeanor. She unveils his self-centeredness and lack of concern for Beaton, emphasizing the profound impact his involvement has on her life. Monica insists that he partakes in their ballet exercises, aiming to demonstrate the arduous nature of the art form and the significance of Beaton's aspirations. Joe's active participation underscores his newfound engagement, prompting him to create a special room for Beaton at home. Upon discovering the room, Beaton is elated, further solidifying their bond. Joe engages in heartfelt conversations with Beaton, fostering a deeper connection between them. Through this transformation, Joe evolves from a distant figure to an attentive and loving father, championing Beaton's dreams. On another day, a message arrives from one of Joe's friends named Tatiana, informing him of her return from a trip and expressing her intent to visit him at home. Beaton is taken aback when Joe instructs her to gather her belongings and retire to her room, advising her to stay there and play with her toy while he prepares for Tatiana's arrival. Subsequently, Joe invites Tatiana for dinner at his home, requesting Beaton to wait at the neighbor's house until he returns. However, Beaton becomes jealous and devises a ruse to return to Joe's residence, hoping to join the dinner. When Joe learns of this, he cancels his plans, leading to an argument with Beaton. Their disagreement escalates, with Beaton reproaching Joe for his self-centeredness, a sentiment echoed by her late mother. Angered, Joe retreats to his room, while Beaton locks herself in hers. After a short while, Joe recognizes his mistake and attempts to reconcile with Beaton, serenading her to gain her forgiveness and persuade her to open her door. Although still upset, Beaton eventually succumbs to Joe's charm, and he enters her room, mending their rift. Joe seizes the opportunity to suggest a trip, either to the ballet school or an amusement park. The following day, Joe is surprised to find himself as the only man in the amusement park, engaging wholeheartedly in activities usually associated with mothers and their daughters. In an amusing turn of events, Joe even allows Beaton to paint his nails, much to the amusement of their companions. This transformation solidifies Joe's commitment as a father and garners his friends' approval. Joe then addresses his friends, emphasizing the importance of their upcoming matches and his aspiration for the team to win this year's championship. Meanwhile, Beaton trains diligently for an elaborate ballet performance, while Joe actively participates in her training sessions. During this period, Monica, content with Joe's involvement, encourages his participation in the performance, solidifying their bond. As the competition nears, Joe's team qualifies for the final match, prompting celebrations among his friends. On the day of the ballet performance, Joe surprises Monica with a bouquet, which he instructs Beaton to present. This heartwarming gesture deepens their connection. The group prepares for the performance, adorning ballet attire. However, Beaton grows nervous upon seeing the sizable audience in the hall, fearing her appearance on stage. But Joe talks to her and assures her that this is a natural thing that happens to anyone when they present something to people for the first time. He asks her to be calm and confident. Joe's friends join them and they see him wearing ballet attire. They tease him and laugh together. Joe is surprised when Beton invites them without telling him, and the performance begins after that. The performance is beautiful and impresses everyone present. They received applause and cheers from the audience. After the performance, Joe invites Mong and Beton to have dinner. They are all very happy, and Beton tells Mong that Joe is preparing for the final match of the championship. Then, Joe tells Beton that she won't be accompanying him for the last match in the championship. This is because the month has ended and he will return her to her mother. However, Beton misspeaks and reveals to Joe that she was supposed to be at another ballet school during this month, as agreed with her mother. Beton had actually run away to spend this month with Joe, which angers Joe because she lied to him and her mother. He worries about the potential negative press and impact on his reputation. Suddenly, Beton starts coughing and has trouble breathing due to the food she ate. She had eaten something with nuts, and she has an allergy to nuts. Joe quickly rushes her to the hospital, deeply concerned for Beton's well-being. At the hospital, Joe is extremely worried about Beton. The doctor reassures him that Beton is okay and suggests she be kept under observation for a few days. Then, Beton's aunt, Karam Khalid, arrives at the hospital and scolds Joe. She accuses him of kidnapping Beton and threatens to involve the police. Joe is shocked by this revelation and questions Beton about her previous statements. Beton admits that she had lied to him about her aunt's death and that Karam had been taking care of her during her absence while working in Africa. As they discuss, they are surprised to see Beton's aunt, Karam, entering the hospital room along with Joe. Beton explains that she had been the one looking for Joe's address and came to check on her. She informs them that she had informed Beton's ballet school that she would be traveling with her. Karam insists that Beton should return to live with her. However, Joe refuses and tells Karam that he has grown attached to Beton. He emphasizes that he won't let her live with anyone else and that he never knew he had a daughter until recently. Karam is determined to stick to her opinion and requests that they postpone the discussion for now. Now, the situation hangs in the balance as Joe, Betun, and Karam navigate their feelings and decisions concerning Betun's living arrangements. After a brief interval, Betun finds herself in slumber within her chamber. Stella then approaches, engaging in discourse with Joe concerning specific arrangements requisite to be orchestrated before the forthcoming championship. Nevertheless, Joe remains somewhat disinterested in her conversation, leaving her presence to converse with Karen. Soon thereafter, Stella initiates a telephonic conversation, concurrent with Betun awakening from her somnolent state. Stella articulates her trepidation regarding Joe's future due to his preoccupation with his daughter. She apprehends that such dedication might deter his prospects and deflect him from attaining triumphs for his team. Stella, disapproving of Joe obtaining custody of Betun from her aunt, imparts these concerns. This revelation evokes distress in Betun, prompting her to shed tears. Upon Joe's return to her presence, he extends apologies for his past actions, affirming his renewed commitment to her. He assures her that he will never again forsake her, yet Betun remains resolute in her convictions. Subsequently, Joe retires to solitude within their abode, overcome with profound discontent. Examining Betun's agenda, he encounters a missive from Sarah. This correspondence, inscribed before her demise, unveils Sarah's ignorance of Joe's paternity due to their discord, regretfully impacting his trajectory. Amid the culmination of the championship's final match, journalists beseech Joe regarding his life following his daughter's departure. Joe eloquently declares his daughter's paramount significance in his existence, expressing his yearning for her to return. Meanwhile, Betun, now aroused from her slumber, attentively observes her father's televised utterances. The match commences, and Joe's participation is conspicuously lacking, resulting in his team's apparent defeat. The peculiar turn of events puzzles onlookers. Then, fate intervenes as Joe sustains a severe injury, prompting medical concerns of considerable magnitude. Recognizing the gravity of his condition, Joe surrenders his captaincy to a teammate, who valiantly substitutes for him. In this pivotal moment, Betun approaches, her conviction to remain by Joe's side evident. The televised episode has altered her perspective, motivating her to implore Joe to return to the field. The team's supporters roar with chants of Joe's name as he resolutely re-enters the arena. The match nears its denouement, the opposing team dominating. Mere moments remain until the contest's conclusion, and despite his affliction, Joe summons the strength to score the championship-winning goal. In triumph, the team and spectators celebrate Joe's accomplishment. Journalists inquire about Joe's aspirations post-championship. With eloquence, Joe declares his intention to spend time with his daughter, embracing her and commemorating their victory with his comrades. As the story reaches its conclusion, the film fades.